Hello, I'm Linda Ann Smith. I'm a member of DecoArt's Helping Artists program, and I'm bringing you a video today with mostly DecoArt products. I use an awful lot of Gatorade bottles in my art. A lot of times I'll trim off the top and use them as water containers or to clean my brushes because they have this rough surface in the bottom of the bottle, and you can rub your brushes against that and it helps clean them. But today I'm going to try something a little bit different. One of the nice things about this is that if you get scissors, you can peel that whole label off and have a clear bottle almost instantly, as opposed to some bottles where you have a lot of residue left that you need to scrub off. These G2 bottles come in two different sizes, or maybe even more, but these are what I have, and I'm going to use them to make some winter decorations today. Once the labels are removed, I can use this DecoArt Gesso to paint the bottles. That'll make them adhere the paint better when I get started on painting. Once I finish painting the larger bottle with gesso, I can set it aside to dry while I paint the smaller one. I'm not painting the bottom of the bottle because my idea for this is later I may want to use it as a gift container for perhaps bath salts or cocoa mix or M&Ms or whatever I decide to put inside, and that will give me a little window on the bottom to see what's inside. You'll need to wait until this gesso is thoroughly dry before you start painting it, but when I did start painting, I used Americana gloss enamel in white. You'll cover up all of the gessoed area with this white paint, and if it starts trying to lift off at any point, it's better to dab at it a little bit instead of stroking it. This went pretty easily. I didn't have very many places at all where the paint tried to come away. So I painted both bottles until they were opaque and you couldn't see through them. This gloss enamel gives really good coverage with just one coat on top of the gesso. I also covered both lids with gesso. While the bottles and lids dried, I set them aside and went to the next step for making the snow people. I went all over the craft store looking for foam sheets, but I didn't go to the children's craft department, and that's where they keep them. It says ages 3 and up for primary, and so they are found in the children's department if you have a hard time locating them. I'm going to cut two circles, one from black and another one from the red. The red one's going to be larger because I don't need as large a brim on the snowman's hat as I do on the snow woman's hat. I kind of eyeballed what I thought I would need, and this one turned out just a tiny bit too small, so I ended up cutting a second black one that was just a tiny bit larger than this one. If you find that your gesso isn't completely dry on the lids by this time, you can use a heat gun to speed the drying process. I'm painting the smallest lid red. In fact, this is Americana multi-surface satin in red hot. And I'll paint the largest lid in the gloss enamel black. These colors were chosen to match the foam circles that I cut earlier. I kind of had a lazy day going back and forth on these, but as I said earlier, you don't have to do it that way. You can use the heat gun to speed up your drying times in between. Since I already had some of this red hot Americana multi-surface satin on my palette, I decided to add some DecoArt Traditions in the color Hansa Yellow Medium to it to make an orange for their noses. Now, these paints mix well together. You can mix gloss enamels with satins and DecoArt Traditions with multi-surface satins, it doesn't hurt a thing. On the bottle there is a little lightning bolt type of not impression, but raised area, and I was going to avoid that at first. I also was going to avoid smearing things, but I can go back later and fix that with a little white paint. I was going to avoid that raised area, but it turned out that it looked just like a nose, so it was just perfect. Well, almost perfect. But never give up when you make a bobble or a mistake, because those things can almost always be fixed. And here I go, making the nose on the other snowman. I've got a little bit smaller brush for this one, so I don't think I'm going to smear it as badly. Doesn't this look just like a little carrot sitting up there? There's also a little black on one of my palettes, so I'm going to use the end of my paintbrush, and this is a very blunt end. It looks like it's absolutely been cut off. So the end of my paintbrush, and load it with paint and start the snowman's mouth. Now that first one didn't come out real well because I needed more paint, so I went back and added more. And the next ones, if I loaded it up with a lot of paint, it worked really well. I get so excited when I'm making these, I want to sing Frosty the Snowman, but I'm pretty sure that you would enjoy my art and craft skills a lot more than you would my voice. I have plans to make the Snow Woman's mouth with a different technique. I drew the outline of the snowman's eyes with a black Sharpie marker. Here's how they look. And I'm going to fill in now with Americana gloss enamels in dark chocolate. I'm not going to fill in the entire space because I want some of the white of the eye to show. I'm afraid my snowman isn't as focused as my painting palette because I was holding him up with one hand to kind of steady him while I painted. So you're seeing a real nice clear painting palette. I filled in the entire area that would represent the iris and the pupil, and I'll come back to this after it dries. When you're working with something like this, there's a play between realism and fantasy, so you don't have to make everything like a person would be. I didn't give him any pupils, but I am going to give him some highlights in this big brown snowman eyes. And all I do is put some white on the end of a paintbrush again and just give it a dot. I put both dots on the right hand side so it would look like they were working properly. It wouldn't look cross-eyed. And now I'm taking my Sharpie marker and adding a few eyelashes. I don't make them very curvy, kind of straight, because I want him to look a little more masculine than the Snow Woman. And there, that's a pretty good snowman face. So let's go back to the Snow Woman. I'm mixing some of the white with some of the red that I already had on my palette. And I want to make a nice little cheeky pink. I have some lovely pink colors in the DecoArt paints, but why waste the paint when I've already got these that I can mix together on my palette? So I'm just going to give some little circles to each side of her face. I'm ready to do her eyes, and I want them to sparkle, so I chose a neon paint. It's called Americana Multi-Surface Neon in the color blue. I'm painting little blue ovals above the cheeks on each side of the nose. And this time I'm not going to fill in the center. I'm going to leave that highlight in there. It's optional. It's up to you how you do it, but this is just another way to put in a highlight in the eyes. To speed the drying process up, I used my heat embossing tool to dry these when I finished painting, and that way I could proceed to the next step, which is using my black Sharpie marker to add details. Now this could be painted also, but my hand's steadier with a marker than it is with paint, especially at this time of the evening. I'm adding all kinds of long sweeping, outward sweeping eyelashes to make her look very feminine, and I'm going around the little highlight in the eye to accent it and give her, actually she's got a pupil, he doesn't. Now I'm drawing on the mouth. I want the mouth to have a little tongue showing here. A nice little pink tongue, so I'm going to mix some red paint with some white again, but this time I'm going to make that pink darker than the cheeks are. This is the larger black piece that I cut from the foam pieces, and I'm going to take it now and depress the lid into the center of the circle so that I can tell how large to make the opening. I learn something new every time I make a new project, and one of the things I learned was this foam is stretchy, so you don't need to cut it quite as big as I did. I could have cut it smaller. I cut it right on the inside of the line of that depression of the lid, but I could have cut it slightly smaller and it probably would have fit a little better. I'll keep that in mind when I cut the Snow Woman's hat. I pulled this little donut shaped piece over the bottle and down under the little ridge, and I could leave that white there. It could be part of the hat band, but I think I might try to cover it with a little black marker and see what happens. Here I'm using my glue gun and glue stick to attach that hat brim so that it won't move around and slip off. The only thing you need to be cautious about here is not to get glue on the lid so that you can't remove the lid. I attached Mrs. Snowman's hat in the same manner, except I pulled down the sides and glued it down to the body or the head of the Snow Woman. You can see it here from the front and the side and the back. She's modeling, and the other side. Added some scarves made of ribbon and an old piece of a fabric belt, and they're done. I'll put a link to the DecoArt site in the description below. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I'd really appreciate it. There's usually a little subscribe button somewhere near this video when it's completed. Thank you for watching.